Well, hello everybody. And if you were with us last week, you noticed that we did a stream recapping a few of the teams from 2023. That was part one, and this week we're going to be part two, and we'll be covering Jordan Briggs. We will be covering Nick Ergang and Rich Nalette. So let's get started with Jordan. Jordan, pause. All right, we're back with it. Sorry about that. So let's see, Jordan. Now Jordan is a original to the league. He's been in the league since first season 2014, and Jordan over the years has made a lot of moves, trades to try to position himself to have good seasons. Hasn't happened, unfortunately, until now. So Jordan actually, for much of the season, actually was in first place for a while. Had a very dominant team. Then he had some moments where some injuries took place, like everyone has. Um, but he ended up with a 9-5 record, won his first ever division title, and made his first ever playoff appearance. Um, so, with that being said, Jordan finished overall in fourth place. Um, he scored 19,909 points, which put him third in scoring for the season. Um, and his points given up were 16,240, which put him first place, which means he put up a lot of points when he played teams, and majority of them didn't put up a lot when they played him. So those are some of the keys always to having a good season. Um, Close games. He had week 2. He had a loss against Ian. He lost by 35. Um, he lost to Greg by 43. And he had 2 where he lost. I'm sorry, he had 1 where he lost to Ian again in the final regular season game by 96 points. If you were to take all 3 of those losses and turn them into wins, he actually would have been the number 1 seed. Um, but of course, we can't do that. So he won his first round matchup against Mark, and then he ended up losing in the second round against Greg. And then he played in the third place game and lost to Anthony. Looking at his team for potential keepers, we think overall he has a strong potential 5 keepers. Um, and we think he'll keep Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback for Miami, wide receiver Amon St. Brown, running backs Ken Walker and Elvin Kamara, and wide receiver Michael Pittman. Other considerations are running back Brian Robinson, wide receiver Gabe Davis, tight end TJ Hawkinson, receiver Cortland Sutton, and tight end Dallas Goedert. If I was going to really guess, I'm not sure which way to go. I want to say he keeps Pittman. Um, his first transfer out might be Hawkinson, but I think Pittman would be the way to go. So, all in all, Jordan had a phenomenal season, and we think Jordan can keep this going. Um, with if he hits the draft right with these 5 potential keepers, we think Jordan will have a good future going forward. So we think the first 9 years of his career in the league were not great. Year 10 was amazing, and we see years 11 and 12 and going forward to be pretty good themselves. So good job, Jordan. We're all proud of you. Been a long time coming. So let's get to Nick Ergang. Um, so in Nick Ergang's case, he definitely had some injury issues and just some players that just didn't perform as expected. Um, but there's a silver lining in this, and I think Nick Ergang is definitely where I always do that under 100 point, because you take 100 points. If you lose or win by 100 points, you divide that up by what you start. Doesn't take a lot to make up that difference, where those could have been wins or losses for you. So Nick's a very interesting one. So Nick ended up with a 3-11 record. 14th place overall, was by far his worst season he's had since he's been in the league, and he's been in this league since season 2. But this is where the big but comes in. So he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to say 7 games that could have gone either way. So let's start right out. And almost, I think all except for one are losses. So the first 3 matchups against his own division, he lost to Nick Ritz by 67 points. He lost to Anthony by 60 points. He lost to Tony by 65. Um, the other one, and I always say the 100. This was a 102-point win for him. He had a 102-point difference in a victory for himself against Liam. He lost to me by 68. And then he lost to Ian by 49. He lost to Anthony by 47 points. 3, 4, 6. You take all those, turn them into wins. Also, now he's got a 9-win season, which probably would have made him a playoff team for sure. He would have been a wild card team. So, like I said, he's obviously still a solid team then. And you look at his keepers, and I think his keepers are pretty solid as well. So I'm projecting for him for Austin Eckler, the running back. Now that one, it could be interesting because Austin Eckler, I believe, is a free agent. So if he was to go somewhere else or stay, that could impact how he does. Quarterback Lamar Jackson is the definite keeper. Justin Tucker is I'd say a keeper for him. I mean, the number 1 kicker in the game, and really outproduces a lot of running backs. I also project receivers Deebo Samuel and receiver Terry McLaurin. Of course, McLaurin could be an interesting quarterback situation. That being said, they are going to bring in definitely a new quarterback there. McLaurin could be a key to that. Other potential considerations for him are running back Zach Moss and running back Miles Sanders. If I was him, I'd let those guys go, but I could definitely see consideration for keeping both. In Moss's case, Moss did have a good season when Jonathan Taylor didn't perform. However, Jonathan Taylor, I think that situation's mended itself. Barring injury, Moss will be more of a change of pace. And Miles Sanders probably had the worst season of his career. So going forward with him, not sure what's going to go on there. But change of coaching is coming in Carolina, so who knows what's going to happen there. Again, as a whole, his overall record was not stellar at all. But again, if you take those 6 games, like I said, he's got 9 wins. He's in the playoffs. So Nick Ergang's definitely in a good position, I think, going forward. Again, in this year, 5 keeper, you nail the draft right, you could have a good 3-year run going. So overall, again, disappointing final record and rank, but Nick Ergang, I think he had a good season, really. I don't think your record projects the season you had. So, I didn't give that. So points for, he scored 17,248 points, which put him 13th for scoring. And then he gave up 19,938, which was 15th in the league. So they really brought it to him when they played Nick. And actually, typically, this was also his worst season for giving up points, because typically Nick has always been one of the teams that teams never played well against for whatever reason. For years, we called him the Tony Killer because Tony could not stop him. And although Tony did beat him twice this year, again, one of those could have been a win. So, again, that was Nick Ergang's season. And now we will go on to Rich Nalette. Rich, of course, is a charter member of the league, former league champion from 2015. So Rich's record, Rich had I think overall had a good season. He ended up with a 8-6 record, put him 7th place overall. He was our best of the rest winner. He was in that position where, and you'll see this in a second, really one more game. All he had to do was win one more game, and he would have been the final seed. He would have been the 6th seed in the championship playoffs. So he had a loss to Brady by 78. He beat JB by 54. He lost to Tony by 74. He lost to Brady by 89, and then the final regular season he lost to Megan by 45. And I remember that one because at one point he was up in that game. We were texting him. I actually texted him and said, "Hey, if you pull this off, you are in the playoffs, and Megan is in the playoffs," which is his daughter. But she beat him by 45 points, and actually it literally came, I think, in the last 2 minutes of the game. There was a big defensive play, if I remember, for Megan on her behalf. So he had a bye in the first round of the Best of the Rest tournament. He was the #1 seed in the Best of the Rest tournament. And then he beat Nick Ritz by 97 in the second round, and then he beat Ian to be the 2023 Best of the Rest winner. We think he's actually got a lot of great choices to pick from. This was actually this is one of the more difficult ones to choose as far as keepers for the teams that we're looking at. But this is what I predicted. So quarterback, C.J. Stroud, the rookie of the year. Wide receiver, Stefon Diggs. Tight end, Travis Kelce. Running back, Aaron Jones. Now the fifth one, I think this could be a lot of different names than you're going to hear. So I went with David Montgomery because I think what they have in Detroit with Montgomery and Gibbs is a thing where I think Montgomery is still going to get a lot of good stats, but he could switch out Montgomery with wide receiver Zay Jones, who had a great year. He could switch out with running back Tony Pollard. He could go with 2 quarterbacks, or he could not go with Stroud and keep Kyler Murray. And he also has potentially the next Justin Tucker, kicker Brandon Aubrey, who is for Dallas. And at the end of the year, I mean, he was nailing he nailed like 3 50-plus yard field goals in one game. So he could be our next Justin Tucker. Kickers are important. Just remember that. But again, overall, I thought Rich had a phenomenal season. If he would have made it into the championship playoff, I think he could have made an impact potentially. Been one of the more constant teams in our league. He's never really had a bad season. He's always, if not in the championship playoff, he's right at that cusp. He's always a contender, always in the conversation. So, again, I think if you went any of his roster, I think you could take, and with good drafting, have a team for the next 3 years that could really wreak some havoc in the league. So, again, good job, Rich. That'll end our recap for this week. And then next week we'll have part 3, which, oh, geez. Sorry, I forgot who the next 3 are, but I want to say Megan might be in that mix, but we'll see you next week. Next Saturday is when that one will be. So, again, thank you, and take care, everyone.